So for the past few years, Motorola has been known for making excellent smartphones with excellent prices, and that trend continues with the new Motorola Moto G 3rd generation. It builds off the previous model in many ways, but still keeps that reduced price tag. And plus they've implemented Moto Maker, so that way you can customize your Moto G to your liking with many different options. So pricing is still low. For $180 you get 1GB of RAM and 8GB of onboard storage, but for $220 you get 2GB of RAM and 16GB of onboard storage. That's the route I suggest going. So the packaging is really simple. If we just open it up right here, you can see you have the Moto G sitting right on top. We'll go ahead and take the tray and the Moto G and then set it to the side. We'll take a closer look at that in just a minute. Underneath the Moto G, you're going to find the wall adapter and the micro USB cable. It is a one-piece setup, so you can't disconnect the micro USB cable from the wall wart and then use it for syncing your device with your computer, so just keep that in mind. And then finally, you have your basic literature, which is the Moto G README, pretty much product overview booklet, and then you have the Safe, Smart, and Protected, which is your health, safety, and warranty information. So we'll go ahead and do a quick tour around the Moto G. Starting on the bottom, you can see you have your micro USB port here used for charging and syncing your device. On the right hand side, you have your power button and then your volume rocker. What's nice is the power button is actually textured, giving it a better tactile feel. On the top, you have your 3.5mm headphone jack as well as a microphone. And finally, on the left hand side, you have Zilp Nada Diddly Squat. However, that plastic trim that goes around the sides of the Moto G is very nice. It's very glossy and kind of emulates metal a little bit. Flipping the phone over and starting at the front, you're going to find your earpiece, which is actually recessed, which is different than the previous model. And then of course you're going to find your dedicated sensors. Then on the top right, you're going to find your front-facing camera, which has actually been bumped up from 2 megapixels to 5 megapixels. Shifting things on down, you're going to find some more of that recessed design. And then behind this is actually a microphone and then of course a single front-facing speaker. Flipping things over, you can see you have a redesigned back. That little metal strip down the center with the old Motorola dimple is actually customizable, so you can select what kind of metal finish that you actually want during the Moto Maker process. You also have a new flash. It's a two-tone flash to give you better skin tones whenever you use it. You also have a new and improved camera. Up from 8 megapixels, it's now 13 megapixels, and it features the same sensor that's found in the Nexus 6. The back of the Moto G is removable, and underneath that, you're going to find access to your micro SIM card slot and your micro SD card slot, expandable up to 32 gigabytes. And of course, if at any given point you feel like swapping out the color of that backplate, all you have to do is just purchase one from Motorola and then put it on. Now on the inside portion of that backplate, you're going to notice that there's different styles of locking mechanisms to secure it back on the phone. And you're going to want to take note of this because it's extremely important. Whenever you put that backplate back on your Moto G, it's not only important to go around all the edges and sides pressing down firmly, but also up the center of that backplate, making sure everything locks into place, because the Moto G does come with an IPX7 certification, meaning that it's going to give you some excellent water protection. Whenever you first boot up your Moto G, there'll actually be a notification there saying that you need to make sure that the backplate is securely fastened in order to gain this function. As you can see here, I have a working Moto G. I just dipped it in the water while playing Danny's video, and of course it is still playing. Now the display on the Moto G is definitely not the highest resolution or the sharpest on the market. It's a 5-inch 720p LCD panel, good for a PPI of 294, and so far in my testing, it's not been bad at all, and it's all protected with Gorilla Glass 3. The back of the Moto G is texturized, and honestly, I love it. It gives you an amazing grip whenever you're holding it in the hand, and you really don't have to worry about it slipping out of your hand whatsoever. It reminds me of almost like a rubberized material, even though it is plastic. Of course, I'll cover durability and how well this thing holds up over a period of time in my full review. As far as internals goes, you're looking at a 1.4 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 410 processor. It does support 64-bit architecture, and of course it's available in 1GB or 2GB of RAM. As far as the GPU is concerned, you're looking at the Adreno 306. And finally, the battery has had a bump from 2070 mAh to 2470. The Moto G ships with Android 5.1.1 straight out of the box, and of course will be upgradable to Android M later on in the future. Now don't let that chipset or the GPU or even the 2GB or 1GB of RAM fool you. The Moto G can fly, and that's because it's pretty much running a stock version of Android. It doesn't have any features in it that you're not going to use, and it definitely doesn't come with any bloatware whatsoever. Now I will be testing out the GPU further in my full review, but so far I am more than pleased with the performance. Now the Moto G supports GSM carriers here in the United States, including T-Mobile and AT&T. However, if you're on T-Mobile, you're not going to find Wi-Fi calling anywhere in this phone, including the phone settings as you see here. But if you back out and go into the main settings and then go under more, you're not going to find it there at all either. Another issue that I've had with T-Mobile so far, which might be area specific, is whenever I was on a phone call, I could not run data and voice simultaneously without being connected to a Wi-Fi network. The Moto G does support the twist of the wrist gesture to launch the camera, and if you twist it again, it will give you access to your front-facing camera. If you give it a Jackie Chan karate chop, it will turn on your flashlight, and of course, if you do it one more time, it will simply turn off the flashlight. And just like the Moto X, it features active display, except it doesn't have the sensors built into it, so you'll have to actually pick up your Moto G to view your notifications at a glance. As far as the camera software is concerned, you have drag and drop focus and exposure, and then of course you can adjust the exposure manually. You can either lower it or raise it and then simply tap to take a picture. Swiping to the left will actually pull up your gallery, but swiping to the right will pull up your camera settings. Here you'll find settings for HDR, flash, your drag and drop exposure, your night mode, which is supposed to give you better images whenever it's darker. You have different modes for video. You can shoot in 720p slow motion or HD 1080p. Below that, you can actually change the aspect ratio and the resolution of your photos, and then finally you can set a timer. So here's the facts. So far, I am beyond impressed with this little tiny phone that you can get for less than $250 unlocked. I mean, I still have a lot of testing to do, don't get me wrong, so make sure you stay tuned for my full review where I'll cover the camera, the battery life, and everything else. However, this phone has blown my mind with its performance so far. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop me a thumbs up, subscribe so you don't miss my full review of the 2015 Motorola Moto G. Follow me on all my social media connections so that way you can get at me if you have any questions, and of course I'll talk to you guys in the next video.